So we're here today with Paul Lacey at Lord Montagu's Estates, Beaulieu, for the Simply Porsche Day, and we're here today with about 2021 Porsche 928s, which is our particular passion, enthusiasm in life, isn't it, guys? And we're supporters of Porsche Club Great Britain, the Porsche Independent Enthusiast Club, TIPEC, and of course Porsche928.org, and the Facebook, the Passion 928 Passion Group. Let's talk about prices. So here we are, 2014, summer's here, people are out looking at cars. What can you pay? This is a loaded question, of course, but what can you pay for a good 928, serviceable, and are there differences in the models from a pricing point of view?
Yes, the price is a huge range, really huge now. One sold last week for £500, an S4, needed a lot of work, but a whole car if you're into huge projects. And at the other end of the scale, the GTS, late GTS, two have sold recently in the States for $90,000 thereabouts.
And in fact, one of our friends, 928.org, just recently bought GTS for £35,000 here.
Yeah.
So that's very, very top end in my recent knowledge and experience. I think if you come down from the GTS, 35 is an exceptional price. Haven't seen the car, but it must be something special. You do see GTSs up at the 20-25,000 regularly. Maybe dealers, a little bit of.
Are they selling for that price? Do you know?
Slowly.
Yeah. They are slow, yeah.
Yeah.
So typically, what if we're looking at a car with an MOT, with tax, with good service, that's not going to cost us a fortune, that maybe needs a little bit of improvement, but something that isn't going to make you feel embarrassed when you take it out to a meet or to meet some of your buddies down at the club with a Porsche Day. What are you looking at spending, do you think, for, let's say, an S2, maybe an S4?
Well, if we could go slightly backwards, take this GT next to you. It's a fairly unusual colour. It's a high mileage car. It's done 200,000 miles plus.
It looks like the Minerva Blue. I'm sure it's not. What is it?
It's called Tahoe Blue.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a GT. So, in my view, the best model of all the 928s. Pretty good condition, and you're looking at probably between 12 and 14,000 to buy that car.
Would that need anything doing to it, or is that
no?
It's ready to go.
Good service history.
A daily driver.
High mileage though.
Yeah. And should people be put off with the fact it's got 200,000 miles under the wheels?
No. There are people that have driven 928 engines up above 600,000 miles without a rebuild. If they're looked after well, then and used regularly, they're almost bulletproof.
And this will have had probably, since then, not the original suspension. It might have had some items replacing.
Yeah, things would have been replaced over those years. Obviously brakes and suspension, probably the exhaust system, things like that, and then service consumables.
So at the other end of the scale, what do you think one might look at?
So that's pretty expensive. If you've got £12,000 to spend, you'll get a really, really nice car. And as Vince said, we're talking below the GTS, where the price goes up a lot. But at the other end, you could get an S4, looks the same as this, but needs a little bit of tender loving care, and you could pay 4,000 to 5,000. So it is a big range. And it's all depending on what you want it for. If it's your second car to use at the weekends, then you can afford to buy a cheaper one and fiddle with it and upgrade it slowly and so on.
And Vince, your car is more than a weekend car, isn't it? You use it on a regular basis.
I use it fairly regularly. Mine is also a fairly high mileage, 165,000 miles. I've put, I think, 40,000 miles on in 10 years. It really isn't a problem for these engines. As Paul has said, they're better off being used. But the key is regular servicing. Don't skip servicing. A
little bit less temperamental than a Ferrari, maybe?
Yeah. 100 times less temperamental, yeah.
Now, before we were on camera, we were looking at this lovely pearlescent white car to our left here. And you tell us that it's one of two. Do you want to briefly take us through the history and maybe try and give a stab at a price, and then maybe we can talk about the earlier cars that people will probably remember from their youth with posters on the wall?
Well, there were two of these particular cars in exactly the same specification that were specified by two Arab, I believe, princes in the late 80s, and two brothers, and these cars were built for them. They're very special. Everything inside is leather, even the roof lining is leather. Special steering wheel with an inset Porsche badge, special wheels and a special paint job. So I would hate to think what that's worth. I think it's easily 30,000.
So I'm going to twist your arm, you're going to say 30 or thereabouts, yeah?
Yeah.
But it's the old story, isn't it? You know, it's who's available at the time and whether the chap would ever want to sell it. And it was such a, not unique, but one of two globally. My first comment was that these must be, you know, aftermarket wheels, but you say it's not the case. And in fact, we can see the difference in the steering wheel with that white pad and the very unusual Porsche emblem offset to the right hand side of it.
Just on the pricing, Graham, I know you've looked at Paul Champagne's website, as have I, and sort of looked in awe at what he does with interiors for 928s. To kit a current 928 out to that standard in leather, I think you'd be talking 15 to 20k, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Would you really?
Yeah.
Wow. So basically the interior is almost worth the value of the car. You get the engine thrown in. So we haven't talked about the earlier cars, and I know that when people look at classic cars or something which is a bit different to the norm, if they haven't got the money they'll go for an earlier car. And I do know there's, certainly from a 928 point of view, that may be a false economy. Do you just want to take us through why an early 78, 79 pre-S, or maybe one of the early S cars with high mileage may not necessarily be the way to go?
Well, the very early cars are commanding, we're talking about 1978, are commanding high prices simply because those are bought by collectors. There's so few of them, and if there's a good one, it'll go into a collection and it won't be on the road. So those command a high price, but then when you get to 1980, then they come back down again because there's lots more of them, and you know, they're a general everyday car. So from 80 to 85, the S and the S2, those are probably the cheapest good 928 that you could buy.
And less complex.
Less complex. A lot of people go for the earlier cars because of the 16 valve engine, less electronics to go wrong, and so on. So in theory more reliable and cheaper to run.
So if we were looking at recommending maybe a couple of books, what's your must-have on your library bookshelf if you're a 928 fan, or you're looking at buying a 928? What would you suggest firstly?
Well, David Hemmings, who's the Register Secretary for 928s in the Porsche Club GB, he's written a fantastic book on a buyer's guide really on the 928, and that is the 928 Bible. If you're looking to buy one, you should definitely get a copy of that. And unfortunately I haven't published my book yet, so... Is that
in the offing?
It is, actually.
You're working on it, that's good. Have you got a favourite Porsche book, Vince, that you like?
I've got to agree that I got hold of a copy of David's sort of world handbook before I bought a car, and actually joined the Porsche Club before I bought a car, so that I could get out and meet people and go to events like this where you can meet owners who know the cars, because these aren't cars to buy on
blind,
on a whim.
And people do and end up taking them home and find they've got themselves
they can be a real
challenges.
Money pit.
And there's also, when you join Porsche Club GB, if you join the 928 Registrar, there is indeed this very thick tome, isn't there, Paul, that you can get from David, which is a collective download of the experience, knowledge and buying guides and information over the years he's collated. It's jolly valuable, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot of knowledge available, readily available for free. And there are a lot of people within the 928 community that are happy to help, and I would always suggest that if possible, if you're going to look at a 928 potentially to buy it, you should take someone with you that will look over it for you and they know what they're looking at.
There's one Porsche book that I like in particular. It was bought for me by my parents when I was, you know, probably in my early 20s as a Christmas present. I still have it, so 30 years on, and it's Project 928, and it's a beautiful, you know, almost like a coffee table quality book of some really rare photographs of testing the cars in the Sahara and then up in the North Pole, and just nice thing to have on your bookshelf, and probably now £30 to £50, but a good buy nonetheless. So if I was to ask you then, Paul, your favourite car today, apart from your own one, what would you take home if the owner would let you and you had the money in your pocket? What would you be taking home?
The car behind you, the Tahoe Blue GT.
It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yeah, I've worked quite a bit on this car for the owner. I know the owner well, and in fact I found it for him when he was looking for one, and I just love the car. I think the colour is outstanding. It's a GT, and it's lovely. That's the one I would take.
Vince, not yours, not included, I'm afraid. But
we happen to be standing between the two chosen cars.
Oh, really?
So I'm really sold on this full leather interior, beautiful pearlescent. Is it white or oyster?
It's pearlescent white. Yeah.
Pearlescent white S4. I like the S4 in auto fashion. I've never actually driven a GT, so I'll bow to Paul's knowledge and his tracked aid. But I live in London, and I took a view that I didn't want a manual for dealing with London. And to a degree, these cars, for the long distance driving that they were built for, I think you've got to go a long way to beat the auto. It's a good box, isn't it?
It is a very good box, and very capable, and that's why it was never changed all the way through from the early 80s. And I would say that I agree with you. If you are going to be driving in traffic at all, do not buy a manual.
Unless you're Arnold Schwarzenegger with a very strong left leg. Let's talk briefly about the club. So I know you're a member of everything, aren't you, Paul?
Yeah.
Mostly. So Porsche Club Great Britain?
Yes, I've been in the Porsche Club Great Britain since 2001, when I got my first 928. Well, a year before that I got my first 928, so I joined the 928 register. Basically I wanted the history of the car from Porsche, and that enabled me to dig around and get it.
And whilst it tends to be still very focused on the 911, there's still a large 928 contingent within the organisation, and David Hemmings is certainly, you know, including yourself, of course, you know, one of the main gurus and a font of knowledge, and also very accessible and very helpful. I know that I've spoken to him a couple of times. He's always happy to take a call, and if he's in the country, you know, happy to help.
I think David and Andrew Brearley, who helps him with the 928 register in PCGB, both really nice, helpful guys, and it's almost a club within a club. You're right with your comment about the sort of emphasis on 911 within PCGB. The 928 group almost stands alone in that they're part of the greater club, but it really has probably got one of the best register secretaries in David. His technical support with Andrew, and Adrian Clark is the other guy, isn't he? Technical man.
Now I notice you're wearing proudly your the Independent Porsche Enthusiast Club badge and your logo. So do you want to briefly take us a little bit through Tipec?
Yeah, I think if I'm correct in saying Tipec grew out of the 944 club, and it's got a different approach. It's a smaller club than PCGB, and I think the word enthusiast says it all. It's a club that embraces all cars in the Porsche marque. It's not about one particular model and 50 years of designing out the fundamental error.
So steady on. So it's more inclusive, perhaps.
I was introduced to Tipec a couple of years after getting my car, and joined up, found that the social side of it and the help and enthusiasm of the members of Tipec is just in a different place than PCGB. And following on from that, the region that I now look after, North London, Herts and South Essex, had been without someone looking after it for a few years, and I offered to pick that up. And it's
how many members are you up to now?
I think we're over 50 now.
Fantastic.
In our little group.
And we mustn't forget 928.org, must we? Which is a brilliant daily digest of all things 928, particularly technical expertise. I've found that the ability of people to share information has been outstanding, very useful. And I would recommend that anybody that's interested in buying a 928 hook up. It's free, and people are keen and happy to share their knowledge. And we've got our newfound 928 Passion Group, which is on Facebook, which is specifically for people that are UK based. It's a closed group, so you can say what you like and post what you like without concerns of friends or family or external views. And also it's a very visual group. We're looking for photographs and history and stories about people's 928, so I'm sure that we'll have a lot of postings over the next couple of days on the 928 Passion Group. So there you go. I was just going to ask you one last piece of information, which is, you know, your favourite ever trip in a 928. Vince, what would that be over your years of ownership?
Taking it to its birthplace in Stuttgart.
Really? When was that?
That was in 2012.
And that was a standout trip, I can imagine, yeah?
Yeah. That was a really good run.
And Paul, anything different, or have you got the same experience?
Funnily enough, 10 years ago, and I have the card to prove it, I was right here with my 928, the same one that I've got here today, and it was at the time a worldwide record for number of 928s assembled in the same place at the same time. 133 cars in this central arena, and that was just a fantastic day. And okay, it's just down on the south coast, but a great setting, lovely weather, and the best cars that Porsche have made, in my view.
And it's fair to say that 928 owners are a little bit different. We tend to be of a certain age, perhaps let's say 40 plus, but I've enjoyed meeting chaps in their 70s that have had their cars for, you know, 30 years plus, some of the original owners, so they're quite an eclectic bunch, but very happy to share. So there we go, a lot of coverage about the 928 in all its different variants, prices, buying tips, different variations, and what a glorious setting. So Paul Lacey and Vince Dallimore, thank you both very much, and we'll see you over on Facebook at some stage. Bye bye.
You're welcome, cheers.
Thanks.